The Unified Species Academy was the largest structure had ever seen. It floated in the empty space between three star systems, a massive station made of metal and crystal and materials she could not name. From the window of her small room, she could see ships coming and going at all hours. Students from 40 different species came here to learn, to compete, and to earn positions in the Galactic Council. Was the first human to ever set foot on this station. She had arrived 6 months ago, carrying a single bag and wearing clothes that made everyone stare. The welcome committee had consisted of 3 officials who kept their distance from her as if she carried a disease. They had escorted her to her quarters through empty hallways, clearing the path ahead so no other students would accidentally touch her. At first thought they were being rude. Later she understood they were being careful. To them she was dangerous. Earth was listed in the galactic database as planet XR7. Its classification read, Grade Severe. The file contained thousands of pages describing the horrors of her home planet, active volcanoes, earthquakes that could level cities, hurricanes that stretch for hundreds of kilometers, predators with teeth and claws, bacteria that could kill in hours, radiation from the sun, poison in the plants, venom in the insects. To the rest of the galaxy, Earth was a nightmare made real. And had grown up there. She had survived there for 19 years before the Galactic Council's scouts found her planet and offered one human the chance to study at the Academy. Her classmates did not know what to make of her. They were tall and thin, with skin so clear you could see their organs working inside them. Their bones were hollow, their bodies fragile. They came from a planet with low gravity and gentle weather, and they had evolved to be careful and cautious. When walked past them in the hallways, they pressed themselves against the walls to avoid any contact. They were insect-like beings with hard shells and multiple eyes. They communicated through the vibration of their wings, creating sounds that the translation devices turned into words. They lived in massive hives on their home planet, never alone, always surrounded by family. They found solitary nature disturbing. How could any creature survive without a hive? They were huge, nearly 3 meters tall, with bodies made of living rock and crystal. They were the strongest species at the Academy, feared by most others, but even the watched with something like nervousness. On their world, they were the apex predators. On Earth, they would be prey. Tried not to let the isolation bother her. She went to her classes. She studied in the library. She ate her meals alone in the corner of the dining hall, where the smell of her Earth food would not disturb others. The food was a problem all by itself. Human digestive systems were strange by galactic standards, could eat things that would kill most other species. Capsaicin, the chemical that made peppers spicy, was a deadly neurotoxin to the caffeine, found in coffee and tea, could stop a heart in minutes. Even simple salt in the quantities humans consumed it was dangerous to many species. The Academy had to import special food for her from Earth. Every meal was a reminder that she was different. Her academic performance was nothing special. In mathematics, she scored in the middle of her class, though with their hive-mind computing abilities could solve equations that gave headaches. In physics, she fell behind the who had an instinctive understanding of matter and energy. In diplomatic history, they outperformed her easily. Their species had been part of galactic politics for 10,000 years. Humans had only just been discovered. Was not the student at the Academy. She was not the fastest or the strongest. By most measures, she was painfully average. But there was one area where she excelled, even if she did not know it yet. 6 months into her time at the Academy had started to make one friend. Her name was a student who shared 3 classes with her. Unlike the others of her kind, was curious about the human girl. She asked questions constantly. "Is it true your planet has liquid water falling from the sky?" asked one day after class. Rain said, "Yes, sometimes for days at a time." Swings vibrated with disbelief, "And you just walk around in it." "Sometimes I dance in it. When I was little, my grandmother used to take me outside during summer storms. We would spin around and get completely wet. Stared at her for a long time. Your species is very strange. Smiled, I know. Their friendship grew slowly. Taught how to read the wing language that the translation devices sometimes missed. Taught about Earth customs, about holidays and food and music. They studied together in the library, sharing notes and helping each other with difficult subjects. One evening, as they walked back to their quarters, asked the question that had been bothering her for weeks. Are you not afraid, being here so far from your hive, surrounded by species that fear you? Thought about it. I'm not afraid, maybe a little lonely sometimes, but not afraid. How I would be terrified. I don't know, admitted. I've never really thought about it. On Earth, there's always something to be afraid of. Storms, wild animals, accidents. You learn to live with fear. You learn that being afraid doesn't help, so you just stop. His compound eyes blinked slowly. Your people stop being afraid. Not completely. We just don't let it control us. We feel the fear and then we do the thing anyway. That, said quietly, is the most terrifying thing you have ever told me. Laughed and bumped her shoulder against Shell. Come on, let's get dinner. I want to show you something called ice cream. Neither of them knew that in 2 days an announcement would change everything. An examination was coming, and it would show the entire academy exactly what it meant to come from a. The announcement came on a regular morning, during the first class of the day. Instructor Talai stood at the front of the lecture hall, his old body glowing faintly purple with age. Behind him, a large screen displayed the academy's official seal. Attention, third cycle students, he said, his voice carried through the room by hidden speakers. The survival examination will take place in 3 days. Attendance is mandatory. There are no exceptions. A wave of nervous sounds passed through the room. Wings vibrated. Crystals clinked. Transparent skin flickered with stress colors. Looked up from her notes. She had heard about the survival examination from older students, but the details were always vague. Some kind of test. Something about being left alone somewhere. She had not paid much attention. Now she wished she had. The examination is simple, Instructor Talais continued. You will be transported to a neutral planet. You will remain there for one standard rotation, which is approximately 32 hours. No technology will be permitted. No supplies will be provided. Your only task is to survive. The nervous sounds grew louder. A student near the front raised a trembling hand. Instructor, what kind of planet? The environment has been carefully selected, Talais answered. It falls within acceptable parameters for all species present. Gravity is moderate. The atmosphere contains sufficient oxygen and is free of toxins. Temperature will remain within a survivable range. There are no predators and no dangerous wildlife. The student did not look comforted, neither did anyone else. The examination has a historical pass rate of 85%, Talais added. Those who fail will be required to repeat this cycle of study. Those who pass will advance to the 4th cycle. He paused, his ancient eyes scanning the room. I suggest you use the next 3 days to prepare yourselves mentally. Physical preparation is not necessary. The challenge is not physical. After class, found waiting for her in the hallway. The swings were vibrating at a high frequency, creating a constant worried hum. Did you hear? Asked. Did you hear what he said? About the examination. Yes, I was there. 32 hours alone on a strange planet. No technology, no contact with anyone. Many eyes blinked rapidly. I don't know if I can do this. My species is not meant to be alone. We live in hives. We are always together. The isolation could drive me mad. Put a hand on her friend's shell. You won't be completely alone. I'll be there. Other students will be there. But we can't help each other. That's not how these examinations work. Each student must prove themselves individually. They walked together toward the dining hall, passing groups of students huddled in worried conversations. The mood in the station had changed. Everyone was talking about the examination. Everyone was afraid. In the dining hall, got her tray of Earth food and found their usual corner table. Sat across from her, too nervous to eat. "Tell me about the planet," said. "What else did you learn?" Pulled out her tablet and scrolled through the information. Moderate gravity about 1.1 standard units. Temperature range between 15 and 35 degrees Celsius. There will be a day-night cycle. Natural water sources are present. She paused, her wings quivering. There may be precipitation. "Rain," said, picking up her chopsticks. "Yes, rain," said the word like it was a curse. "Water falling from the sky onto exposed students." "That's not so bad." "Not so bad," his voice rose. "It's water falling from above hitting you for possibly hours at a time." Shrugged and ate a piece of kimchi. "On Earth, that happens all the time. I used to walk to school in the rain. Sometimes I forgot my umbrella and got completely soaked." "And this didn't traumatize you?" "No, it was just wet. You dry off eventually." Stared at her friend for a long moment. Then she slowly pushed her chair a few centimeters away from the table. "Sometimes I forget what you are. Then you say things like that and I remember." Laughed. "It's just rain. To you, to me, it's," searched for the right word. "It's chaos, unpredictable, uncontrollable, something coming at you from above that you cannot stop or avoid." "I guess I never thought about it that way." "That's exactly my point." Leaned forward, her compound eyes intense. "You don't think about it. To you, chaos is normal. You grew up in it, you breathe it, but the rest of us—" She gestured at the other students in the dining hall, all of them worried, all of them preparing for something they found terrifying. "We didn't. Our planets are stable. Our environments are controlled. We evolved in safety." Set down her chopsticks. "Is that why everyone is so afraid? It's not really about the examination. It's about being in an uncontrolled environment." "Yes," said. "For most species, an uncontrolled environment is the most frightening thing imaginable. We don't know how to function without stability, without predictability, without knowing exactly what will happen next." Looked around the dining hall. She saw students from a dozen different species, all of them showing signs of stress. They had gone pale, their organs visible through their clear skin. They were grinding their crystal teeth. Even the usually calm species were agitated. And felt nothing, no fear, no worry, just mild curiosity about what the planet would look like. She said slowly, "I think I understand now." "Understand what?" "Why everyone avoids me. Why they're afraid of me. It's not just because Earth is dangerous. It's because I don't react to things the way you do. I don't get scared when I should." Nodded. "When we look at you, we see someone who is never afraid. Someone who walks calmly through situations that would break the rest of us. And we don't know if that makes you incredibly strong or completely broken." Thought about that for a long time. Then she smiled. "Maybe a little of both," she said. "Now eat your food. You need energy to worry this much." Made a sound that might have been a laugh, and finally picked up her eating utensil. Outside the dining hall windows, the stars continued their slow drift across the black sky. In 3 days, those stars would be replaced by a sun and clouds and maybe rain. Found herself looking forward to it. The transport ship was silent except for the hum of its engines. 57 students sat in rows of seats, strapped in for the journey to the examination planet. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The fear in the air was thick enough to taste. Sat near the back, between an empty seat and a window showing nothing but darkness. Across the aisle was practicing the breathing exercises that used to stay calm. Her wings lay flat against her back, perfectly still for once. The journey took 4 hours. During that time, watched her fellow students slowly fall apart. A near the front started crying, clear fluid running down her transparent cheeks. Two students argued in low, grinding voices about whether they should have refused to participate. A group of huddled together, their bodies pressed close, seeking comfort in physical contact. Nobody came to talk to, nobody even looked at her. When the ship finally landed, the doors opened to reveal a world that made its heart ache with homesickness. A grassy plain stretched out before them, green and gold under the light of a rising sun. In the distance, a forest covered the slopes of low mountains. A river cut through the landscape, its water sparkling like silver. Birds or creatures like birds called from the trees. The air smelled of growing things and clean water and earth. It looked almost exactly like the countryside outside Seoul, where his grandmother lived. She stepped off the transport and took a deep breath. The air filled her lungs, fresh and sweet. The gravity felt right. The temperature was perfect, cool in the morning but warming as the sun rose higher. This was a good place, a beautiful place. Behind her, chaos erupted. "The star," screamed a named, pointing at the horizon where the sun was rising. "It's too close. We'll be burned alive." "That's just sunrise," said, but nobody was listening. The had formed a tight cluster, all of them pressing together until their shells clicked and scraped. Their wings vibrated wildly, creating a sound like a swarm of angry bees. They were trying to recreate the feeling of their hive, but it wasn't working. There weren't enough of them. The sound was wrong. They had spread out, scanning the environment with their crystal eyes. They moved constantly, never standing still, looking for threats that didn't exist. The grass beneath their feet was slightly acidic, and they flinched with every step. It wasn't dangerous, but it was uncomfortable. They couldn't find anywhere safe to stand. They were the worst. 5 of them had already collapsed to the ground, curling into tight balls. The open sky above them, vast and blue and endless, triggered something primal in their tunnel-dwelling minds. They could not handle the exposure. They could not bear the feeling of being so small under something so large. Instructor Tailai's voice came from a drone floating overhead. "The examination begins now. You have 32 hours. Survive." The drone flew away, disappearing into the morning sky. And the students fell apart, watched in confusion as her classmates struggled with things she found ordinary. A light breeze made them cry out in fear, the moving air touching their skin like an attack. The sound of birds in the forest sent them into panic, unknown noises breaking through their attempts to create their own sound wall. Even the smell of flowers seemed to bother some students, the unfamiliar scents overwhelming their senses. This is what they're afraid of, thought. This is the terrible examination. She walked away from the group, heading toward the river. Behind her, she could hear students calling to each other, forming groups, trying to build shelters from nothing. Some were crying. Some were shouting. Some had gone completely silent, frozen in fear. Found a nice spot by the river, where the grass was soft and the sound of water was soothing. She sat down and took off her shoes, letting her feet hang over the edge and dip into the cool water. The sun rose higher. The sky turned from pink to blue. Clouds drifted past like slow ships sailing on invisible winds. Lay back on the grass and watched them pass. About an hour later, she heard footsteps approaching. Appeared, her compound eyes wide and her wings trembling. "I found you," said, relief clear in her voice. "I've been looking everywhere. I've been right here." Sat down next to her, keeping her legs away from the water. "How are you so calm? Everyone else is. It's bad. 3 have stopped responding completely. They're just lying there, staring at nothing. They can't stop making noise. They won't stop moving." "What about you?" Wings fluttered nervously. "I'm terrified, but I'm more terrified of being alone, so I came to find you." Sat up and looked at her friend. "What exactly are you afraid of?" "Everything," gestured at the world around them. "The sky, the water, the sounds, the smells, the way the wind moves, the way the light changes, the way I can't predict anything. I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know if something is going to come out of that forest. I don't know if the weather will change. I don't know anything. Nothing is going to hurt you, said gently. This is a controlled environment. They removed all the dangerous animals. The weather is stable. My mind knows that. My body doesn't believe it. Nodded slowly. She was beginning to understand something important. The examination wasn't testing survival skills. It wasn't testing knowledge or strength or speed. It was testing something else entirely. It was testing the ability to stay calm when everything felt wrong. And for humans, nothing about this place felt wrong at all. Sit with me, said, patting the grass beside her. Just sit and breathe. Watch the river. Listen to the birds. Try to see what I see. What do you see? Smiled. Home. I see home. Sat down carefully, her body tense, her wings still vibrating slightly. But she stayed. And as the sun rose higher and the day grew warmer, she watched her human friend exist in perfect peace in a world that felt like the end of everything. That was when realized the truth. Wasn't brave. She wasn't pretending not to be afraid. She genuinely felt safe here in this chaotic, unpredictable, uncontrolled wilderness. And that was more frightening than anything else. The hours passed slowly on the examination planet. The sun traced its path across the sky, climbing higher through the morning, reaching its peak at midday, then beginning its slow fall toward evening. Clouds came and went. The wind changed direction twice. Somewhere in the forest, animals called to each other in voices no student recognized. And one by one, the students broke. By noon, the situation had become critical. They had all collapsed, their transparent bodies lying in the grass like fallen leaves. They were alive but unresponsive, their minds retreating inward to escape the horror of the open sky. Some of them whimpered. Most were silent. They had stopped trying to recreate their hive sound. The effort had exhausted them, and now they sat in a sad cluster, wings drooping, eyes dull. A few still made small clicking sounds, but it was more habit than communication. They had given up trying to feel normal. They paced endlessly around the landing area, unable to rest. The acidic soil burned their feet with every step, not enough to cause real damage but enough to make standing still impossible. They were tired but could not sleep. They were hungry but could not eat. Their massive bodies, so powerful in normal circumstances, had become prisons. Other species suffered in other ways. The small furry beings from an ice world, overheated in the warm afternoon sun. They dug shallow holes in the ground trying to find cooler earth, but it wasn't enough. The tall, thin creatures with skin like paper were terrified of the river. On their home planet, water was poison. Here, they knew logically that the water was safe, but their instincts screamed at them to stay away. The drone from the academy floated overhead, recording everything. Somewhere, Instructor Talais and other faculty members were watching. They were seeing what was seeing. Chaos, fear, breakdown. And in the middle of it all, one girl sitting by the river, watching the clouds, had not moved from her spot in hours. She had dangled her feet in the water. She had picked flowers from the grass nearby and made a small chain of them. She had watched fish swimming in the shallows and tried to count the different colors of birds in the trees. She had taken a nap when the afternoon grew warm, sleeping peacefully in the open air. When she woke was still beside her, though they looked exhausted. "You slept," said, her voice was weak, tired. "You actually slept." Stretched her arms over her head. "I was tired. It's nice here, comfortable." Comfortable, repeated the word as if she had never heard it before. "This is comfortable to you." "Yeah, the temperature is perfect, the ground is soft, the sound of the river is relaxing." Sat up and looked around. "This is better than most of the places I've slept. When I was a child, my family went camping in the mountains. We slept in a tent on rocky ground. It rained all night. Compared to that, this is luxury." Made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a sob. "Your species is insane." "Maybe," smiled, "but we're happy in our insanity." As the afternoon wore on, more students came to the river. Word had spread that the human girl had found a safe place, not a shelter or a hiding spot, but something better, a place where someone was calm. They came in ones and twos, dragging themselves across the grass, who could barely walk, who had separated from their cluster, even a few, their massive feet raw from the acidic soil. They didn't talk to, they didn't ask her questions. They just sat nearby, as close as they dared, and watched her exist in peace. By late afternoon, there were 15 students gathered around Spot by the river. They formed a loose circle, with and at the center. Some of them stared at the human girl with fear. Some stared with wonder. A few had started to cry, overwhelmed by emotions they couldn't name. Looked at them all and felt something shift in her chest. These beings, these aliens from across the galaxy, were terrified of things she had lived with every day of her life, and they had come to her for comfort. She didn't know what to say. She wasn't a leader. She wasn't particularly wise or brave. She was just a girl from Earth who happened to think this planet was nice. So she did the only thing she could think of. She started talking about home. On Earth, she said, her voice carrying in the quiet air, we have a season called spring. It's when the winter ends and everything starts growing again. The trees get new leaves. Flowers bloom everywhere. It rains a lot, but it's warm rain, not cold. My grandmother has a garden, and in spring she plants vegetables, tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers. I used to help her when I was small. We would dig in the dirt with our hands and put the seeds in the ground. The students listened. They didn't understand half of what she was saying. They didn't know what spring was or what tomatoes were or why anyone would put their hands in dirt on purpose. But her voice was calm. Her face was relaxed, and somehow that helped. The best part of spring, continued, is the cherry blossoms. They're flowers that grow on trees and they're pink and white. When the wind blows, the petals fall like snow. People gather under the trees to watch them fall. They have picnics and drink tea and just enjoy being outside. Why? Asked in a trembling voice. Why would anyone enjoy being outside? Thought about that. Because it's beautiful. Because the world is full of amazing things if you take the time to look at them. Because being alive means experiencing everything, even the uncomfortable parts. They didn't respond, but she stopped trembling quite so much. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and red and purple, kept talking. She told them about oceans and mountains, about rain and snow and thunder, about camping trips and beach vacations and long walks through forests. She told them about humanity, about people who climbed mountains just to stand on top, who swam across oceans just to prove they could, who explored caves and jungles and deserts simply because they wanted to see what was there. She told them about a species that had evolved in chaos and learned to love it. And slowly, very slowly, the students around her began to relax. Not much, not completely, but enough to stop shaking, enough to stop crying, enough to look at the sunset and see something other than danger. The night would be hard. The darkness would bring new fears. But for now, in this moment, they had found something unexpected. They had found a girl who made them feel safe. The transport returned exactly 32 hours after it had left. It descended from the morning sky like a promise of safety, its engines humming as it settled onto the grass. The doors opened, and Academy medical staff rushed out, ready to collect the broken students. They found something they did not expect. 57 students had started the examination. 46 of them were clustered around the river, sitting in loose circles on the grass. They were tired, hungry, and emotionally drained, but they were conscious. They were responsive. They were alive. At the center of the largest group sat, looking like she had just woken from a pleasant dream. The medical staff exchanged confused glances. They had expected chaos. They had expected students scattered across the landscape, hiding in terror, curled into balls of panic. That was what usually happened during the survival examination. That was what the psychological models predicted. Instead, they found something that looked almost like a camping trip. 11 students could not walk on their own. The medical staff carried them onto the transport on stretchers. These were the ones who had broken completely, their minds retreating too far to return without professional help. They would recover eventually, but they had failed the examination. The remaining 46 students walked onto the transport under their own power. Many of them leaned on each other for support. A few were still crying quietly, but they were moving. They were functioning. Was the last to board. She looked back at the examination planet, at the river and the grass and the mountains in the distance. Then she smiled, waved goodbye to no one in particular, and stepped through the door. The journey back to the academy was very different from the journey to the planet. Students talked in low voices. Some laughed, surprised and relieved to have survived. Others sat in stunned silence, processing what they had experienced. Sat next to, her wings folded neatly against her back. "You saved us," said quietly. "You know that, right? Without you, more of us would have broken." Shook her head. "I didn't do anything, I just sat by the river." "Exactly, you sat by the river, you watched the clouds, you talked about your home planet, and somehow that made everything bearable." Turned to look at her friend. "Do you understand what that means? Your presence, your calm, your complete lack of fear, it was enough to stabilize dozens of students who were falling apart." "I wasn't trying to help anyone, I was just being myself." "I know," said. "That's what makes it so remarkable." When they arrived at the academy, Instructor Taileyes was waiting in the landing bay. The ancient watched the students disembark with unreadable eyes. When walked past him, he inclined his head slightly. It might have been a greeting. It might have been a sign of respect. Wasn't sure. 3 days later, the examination review board held an emergency meeting. Was not invited. Neither were any of the students, but through her extensive network of contacts, managed to learn what was discussed. The board had reviewed all the footage from the drone. They had watched every moment of the 32-hour examination. They had seen the students break down. They had seen sit by the river. They had seen her take a nap. The examination was designed to test survival capabilities, Instructor Taileyes reported to the board. But our models were based on physical survival, not psychological resilience. We failed to account for baseline stress responses in uncontrolled environments. The footage played on a screen behind him. Lying on the grass, watching clouds drift past, dangling her feet in the water, telling stories about spring and cherry blossoms to a circle of terrified aliens. The human student was the only participant who demonstrated zero stress response to environmental conditions, Taileyes continued. She never showed fear. She never showed discomfort. She never showed any sign that she perceived the environment as threatening. "Because to her it wasn't threatening," said another board member, a scientist named. "We classified her home planet as a because of its physical dangers, but we failed to understand what that classification truly means. The human did not survive the examination. She relaxed during it. What we considered a test of survival, she considered a vacation." The board sat in silence for a long moment. "The implications are significant," continued. "Humans don't just endure harsh conditions. They find peace in them. Chaos is their baseline. Unpredictability is their normal. What breaks other species is what humans call a nice day." The footage showed napping while students collapsed around her. "We need to update our understanding of humanity," said the board chair. "And we need to update our examination protocols. The current system is not designed to test species with baselines." The meeting lasted for several more hours, but the conclusion was clear. Humanity was different, not stronger, not smarter, not faster, just different in a way that changed everything. Heard about the meeting from a week later. They were sitting in the dining hall, sharing a meal. Was teaching her friend how to use chopsticks, a project that had been ongoing for months. "They're rewriting the curriculum because of you," said, struggling to pick up a piece of vegetable. There's a whole new section called Baselines and the Human Psychological Norm. Laughed, that sounds very official. It is very official. The Academy is taking this seriously. They want to understand how your species can be so calm in situations that would destroy the rest of us. I don't know if I can explain it, said. It's just how we are. We grew up with earthquakes and storms and predators. We're used to the world being dangerous and unpredictable. So when we encounter something that's only a little bit dangerous, it doesn't really register. Finally managed to pick up the vegetable. She put it in her mouth, chewed thoughtfully, and swallowed. Your species conquered, and then you looked up at the stars and decided to conquer those too. Do you realize how terrifying that is from our perspective? Considered the question. I guess I never thought about it that way. Of course you didn't, because you're human. You don't think about danger the way we do. You just live with it, accept it, move forward anyway. They finished their meal in comfortable silence. Outside the dining hall windows, ships came and went, carrying students and supplies and visitors from across the galaxy. The Academy continued its eternal work of bringing species together, teaching them to understand each other. And in a small corner of that vast station, a human girl and shared a meal, and a friendship that had been forged in the most unexpected way. Not through danger or adventure or heroic deeds, but through the simple act of sitting by a river on a beautiful day and showing the galaxy what it truly meant to come from Earth. Reached across the table and stole a piece of food from his plate. Her friend made an annoyed clicking sound but didn't really mind. Your species, said, for what must have been the 100th time, is absolutely terrifying. Grinned, I know, but you love us anyway. Wings fluttered in what had learned to recognize as a laugh. Yes, against all logic and common sense I do. And that perhaps was the most human thing of all. The ability to be loved not despite being different, but because of it. The ability to make friends across the vast distances of space and species and evolution. The ability to sit by a river on a strange planet and make even the most terrified soul feel safe. Humanity had come to the stars, and the stars would never be the same.